Hello, dear friends. Welcome to another webinar. So our topic for today is related to making long-term predictions for specific life areas. So we are focusing a little bit more on concrete things. This webinar is part of our free marathon. You can watch all of the previous videos recorded on AstroLada's YouTube channel. There is a playlist with all of the videos, including me. So the previous one, yesterday, we talked about long-term prediction in terms of analyzing the patterns and basically seeing how our life develops. Today, we will get a little bit more specific. So I want to show you how, after you see like the general picture, the general flow of your life and how it develops, you can also get more concrete, specific, and practical by exploring concrete life areas. I mean, things like relationships, career, money, education, home, basically the things related to our, let's call it, human experience here on the earth, and how we can use the horoscope, first of all, just by analyzing the natal chart and seeing what are the general themes, how they can unfold with time, and then also knowing how to explore this in prediction. So for those of you who are seeing me for the first time, my name is Mariana Stoichkova. I'm an astrologer, psychologist, GSR expert pro. This is a method which works with deep transformations on a subconscious level. And my general focus is in understanding, exploring, and seeing the general life flow. So what I mean is mostly the development, the possibilities for growth, for progress, for evolution. And this is something that astrology can help us with. And that's one of the most beneficial things you can find with astrology, in my opinion. So today, as I said, I will share with you some guidance, ideas that you can use if you want to explore concrete life areas, again, relationships or kids or career or anything else that could be interesting to you. If we have a volunteer, I will also do a free demonstration. So if someone is willing to join me on Zoom a bit later, I will let you know. And yeah, we can practice together. 1 second just to figure out the technical stuff so that I can see your comments. Please feel free to ask questions, to share your ideas with us in the comments. Let's see. I just need a moment to bring the video so that I can see your comments. And you can also let me know, where are you joining us from? What are you interested in? Is there anything specific you want to know about? Aha, okay, I found the comments. So here we go. I can see your comments now. Also, we have a new training starting really soon. So if you like this approach, if you want to learn how to do such deep analysis, specifically with the focus on development and progress, you are welcome to join us. I will put the links under the video later, and you can always contact me if you have any questions or if you want to find more about the training. And probably at the end, I will share again and I will answer the questions I was asked about related to the training. So, long-term predictions or analysis. How do we do that? First of all, I want to remind you, before we get to more specific and concrete things, we always start with the more general things. So I always recommend you begin generally with the chart. What kind of elements dominate? What is the general astrology pattern? What are the aspect configurations in the chart? Like the big picture things, they are always relevant and important because they describe our personality, our general characteristics, how we respond to the world, like so many things. And there are like basic foundational human qualities that would affect every area of your life. So that's something very important. Before you get to the specific things, you need to see first the big picture. Just a very simple example. Let's say that you want to explore relationships. What are the main experiences, potential problems? Where is the resource related to building up a relationship? Before you get to that, for example, you can explore what is the status of the moon. Even if the moon is not directly related to relationships, for example, with 7th house, because the moon is this indication which shows us how we connect to the outside world. And if you find, for example, someone having, let's say, the moon in an earth sign, especially in Capricorn or in Virgo, in a challenging aspect with Saturn and Pluto, you can see right away that this person can be very cautious. They might even have some kind of fears or lack of trust in the outside world. They may need to keep distance or like many other things in this direction. And this will always be relevant and would be important for their desire and also possibility to build up relationships. So that our general human qualities will be important for every life area you are exploring. Or let's say that you want to explore someone's potential to have their own business. Before you get to the specific houses and indications that are connected to work, career, and business, it really makes sense to evaluate the qualities of this person. For example, how they can tolerate risk, how much they can tolerate risk. Because if someone, for example, is really scared of new things, of uncertainty, of taking risks, that immediately decreases their potential for having a business, or at least having an independent or risky business. So our, again, personality, qualities, and characteristics will affect every life area. So it's actually very helpful to consider that before you get to the specific things. So let's say that we have done this, or at least we know that this is something we should keep in mind, we should consider. How do we proceed? So how do we explore concrete life areas? The first step is you need to define which are the houses related to the topic you want to explore. Why the houses? The houses in the horoscope are closest to the real life experiences and circumstances in our lives. There is a very popular metaphor about the importance, or actually the role of the planets, the signs, and the houses. And it goes like that, or something close like this. It's a metaphor of a play or a scene in a theater, let's say. So the planets are the actors in our play. The sign positions of the planets are the roles that those planets or our characters are playing. And the houses represent the scene, literally, the scene where the action happens. So the houses in the horoscope are extremely important if we want to understand also what happens in the outside or around us, or like concrete life experiences. That's why if you want to make such analysis of, let's say, I will just take like more common and I think, kind of popular examples like relationships in business or career. If you want to understand or make analysis of those areas, you need, first of all, to define which are the houses that are relevant to this. This is like 30% of your job, to define properly the houses. And here, a bit of a, it's not exactly a trick, but a hint. Important life areas are never related to only one house. Important life areas always include at least 2 houses, and usually even more. For example, let's say having a child. The typical, like most popular, well-known house related to children is 5th house. But it's not the only one you should consider. You should include 8th house. If we are talking about conceiving and the process of the actual pregnancy and even the giving birth, 8th house is extremely important. It's the door between the invisible and the visible world. So 8th house is always relevant. 1st house, if we talk about the woman, because the process of getting pregnant, conceiving, and all that changes physically the body. Everything which changes physically your body, your appearance, is affecting or is also related to your 1st house. And even more than that, if we talk about the, let's call them the normal cases when, parents are supposed to live with their kids and take them home and not give them for adoption, then also 4th house is related, because 4th house is your home, your environment, which also changes when you have a baby or a new kid. So again, important life areas will include more than one house. And it's important to define them, which are those houses. Let's think of another example. Work. Also, of course, very important. Work, career. We have 3 houses related. 6th house, this is the service, the work we are doing. 2nd house, this is related to the money that we earn for a living or for whatever from the work we are doing. And 10th house could be either like a vocation, or it feels more like something we do with a purpose. And here, a little reality check. Not every person has a work or career related to 10th house. Some people do, some people don't. If the work feels more like, well, I just do it because I need to pay the bills and, I need to live somehow. This is a sixth house work. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but there we don't have this feeling of purpose or like doing something significant or something which is making me feel like I'm also kind of like growing myself. But for some people, it is possible to have a career which would include 10th house also. Sixth house will also be active because, again, it's service, it's you do something, usually, there are some kind of daily routines most of the time. But if 10th house is related to your work, it would feel like something more significant, usually something more fulfilling, and potentially something that may feel like a purpose or even a vocation. And also, to get even more real, not every person has a big, important vocation in this life. We all have tasks, we all have lessons to learn, but not everyone has like a, big, significant thing, which would be like a vocation. And not everyone will work something related to their 10th house. This is, again, not a bad thing. This doesn't mean that you can be successful or happy. But yeah, if you want to have this feeling like you are really doing something major, significant for yourself and for others, there needs to be a connection with 10th house. And also, very important, I would call it, again, reality check. If you want something to be your business, your career, your work, and to bring you money, it has to be connected to your second house. Otherwise, it will not bring you money. What do I mean here? Let's say hypothetically that you want to explore if you can be an artist. What kind of artist? Oh, let's take another example, astrologer, maybe something more relevant. How to find out if you can earn money from astrology? You need to define, first of all, which is the planet related to this type of work or this type of activity. In this case, it's simple. It's Uranus mostly. There are other planets involved. For example, Jupiter is important. I would say even Saturn, because it brings some kind of structure and it turns astrology into a science and not just something chaotic. But for the most part, of course, it's Uranus. So you need to find if there is a connection between the planet related to this career and your second house. Any connection. It could be the planet, let's take Uranus. Uranus is in the second house, or Uranus is ruling second house, or Uranus has an aspect with the ruler of second house, or Uranus has an aspect with the planet which is in second house, or Uranus has an aspect with the cusp of second house. Any of those would work. And here, any aspect would work as well. It doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but it's not a problem if you have a challenging aspect. For example, let's say Uranus squaring the ruler of your second house. Yes, it can bring some kind of instability, ups and downs, and all of that, but it makes it possible. So this is how we find how much of what we are able to do or we have a potential for can also bring us money. What about Mercury for astrologers? Mercury is important from this perspective to be able to translate the Uranus energy into like a humanly understandable way. From this perspective, it's like to communicate. But only Mercury will not do the job, for sure. Mercury is the simple human mind. It's essential because that's how we connect to other people, to the environment. But only Mercury will not, is not enough, for sure. Okay, so as we said, we define, first of all, of course, we define which is the topic, which is the life area we want to explore. Relationships, money, work, business, education, whatever that might be. And then we define which are the houses related to the topic. And again, remember that the important things include at least 2 houses. After that, also, you can explore like planets which are typically associated to the topics you are exploring. For example, Venus will always be relevant to love, even if Venus isn't directly connected to the houses in your case. But Venus is always about love. So to include that would always make sense. If we talk about education, Mercury will always make sense. Especially if we talk about, processing something, even though for education, again, Jupiter would play an important role if it's something more kind of like expanding your mind or more philosophical or more like allowing you to see a bigger picture. Or in business, for example, Mars and Pluto will be important just to explore them. The sun also. The sun will probably always make sense because this is our individuality or our potential to develop an individuality. So also it makes sense to explore it. And we keep this in mind, like the general picture, like those characteristics that will always play a role, and then the concrete particular houses that are connected to relationships or education or business, whatever you might be exploring. What do you need to do next? You need to find all of the astrology indications related to this house. We also call those significators of a house. The significators of the house, of any house, those are planets ruling the house, planets in the house, if there are any, and also like the natural indicators. What do I mean here? For example, Mars is the natural indicator of first house. The sun is the natural indicator of fifth house. Venus is the natural indicator of seventh. Saturn of 10th house. Those also make sense, are relevant, and it makes sense to explore them. And one thing which is also very helpful, once you see the planets which are relevant, let me see if I can find, I will come up with some kind of example to make it more clear. Let's take sixth house, work-related things. By seeing what kind of planets are connected to your sixth house, you can understand a lot about the dynamic of the house. For example, if the moon is connected to sixth house, usually it indicates more frequent changes in this area. Why is that? Because the moon is the fastest planet we have. The moon changes its sign positions every 2.5 days, approximately. So that's because of that, if the moon is related to your 6th house, it can bring more frequent changes in this life area. But what if Mercury is related? Mercury is also really fast, but there is a significant difference. The moon has a very regular cycle. The moon doesn't have retrograde phases, so it's always pretty much the same, always around 2.5 days, the time that it takes for the moon to pass through a new sign. So it's very predictable. There are no surprises. Like the moon would never surprise you. It's always like the regular speed of the moon is approximately between 12 and 15 degrees per day. Sometimes it could be a little bit less than 12 degrees, but that's the range. You can't have a moon with 10 degrees speed per day, for example, or 20 degrees. Doesn't happen. Always within this range, around 12 to 15 degrees. So it's very regular, it's very predictable. But it's also fast. On the other side, what do we have with Mercury? If Mercury is related to certain life area, there could also be changes, but Mercury is unpredictable because Mercury has retrograde phases. And sometimes Mercury can be very fast, up to more than 2 degrees per day. I think it was something like 2.2 degrees per day, like something like that is the maximum speed of Mercury. And sometimes when we get closer to a stationary phase, at a certain point, it may get to 0 minutes and 0 degrees per day. And so here we have like a huge range of 2 degrees from 0 to 2. That's what makes Mercury, again, more unpredictable. Again, it brings changes, but they are not that regular. They are more like different. So this can tell you a lot about the dynamic of this house and respectively also the concrete life area. And I think it gets even more interesting when we get to the slower planets. For example, okay, let's just cover all of the planets very briefly. We said the moon and Mercury. Venus is more predictable than Mercury. Venus also has a retrograde cycle, but it's much more rare. And Venus tends to have like a more stable rhythm. So Venus doesn't bring those, ups and downs or like big changes or transformations. Mars, on the other side, usually if Mars is connected to certain life area, you may notice that there is some kind of approximately 2-year cycle. Here I can give a personal example. I got married and I was very young, and I got married during Mars retrograde period. I didn't know anything about astrology back then. Again, I was very young, and I got married. Mars was retrograde. And Mars is a second ruler of my 10th house because I have an interception in 10th house. So it's one of the rulers of 10th house, which is also important for your social status. So I'm getting married when Mars is retrograde, and exactly 2 years later, on the next Mars retrograde cycle, I get separated. So you may also explore like which are the life areas related to Mars, and you may notice some kind of 2-year dynamic. Again, this is not a rule which is like set in stone and it's like, but you should consider it and you should explore it. And in most cases, you will find something that has like approximately 2-year duration. With the slower planets, things get even more interesting. For example, with Jupiter, typically we have a 12-year cycle. So if Jupiter is related to a certain life area, and it's definitely related to some kind of life area in your chart, you should explore the 12-year cycles of Jupiter. It's possible that there something may change, or there is like a new, like a restart or something new happening every 12 years, because that's how long it takes for Jupiter to make a full cycle, a full circle, to cross the whole zodiac. And again, try to follow the logic here. The slower the planets are, so the closer we get, to Jupiter, Saturn, and the outer planets, the longer the processes are. With the outer planets, we can also say the more complicated and deeper they get also, and more interesting probably, especially if you are interested in something more extraordinary as an experience. For Jupiter, very important ages are usually the age of 24, even 12, but usually at the age of 12. Of course, some things happen, but we can be quite young at that age. But yeah, you can explore it. But every 12 years after that also, 24, 36, 48, 60, and so on. Those cycles can be very important for this life area. And usually, like in my opinion, for example, retrograde social planets or outer planets are not a problem. It's not like, for example, having Venus or Mars retrograde. Social outer planets, like many people have them retrograde. So I'm not considering that as a minus or something negative. But it is possible that there could be a bit of delay. It is possible. So, for example, if your Jupiter is retrograde, probably the third cycle, 36, and after that, would bring you more than the previous two. I'm saying this very, very generally. If Saturn is related to certain life area, of course, we can expect delays. We can expect that things can be more difficult. There might be, we need to put more effort, obstacles, all of that. In those life areas, usually we don't see significant results before the first Saturn return. So before the age of 29, 30. And again, from my experience, but it's not just me, it's, objectively how things are. If Saturn is related, for example, to your 7th house, like marriage and relationships, it's not a good idea to get married before the first Saturn return. Again, I did that. Also, I just shared with you what happened later, and I have seen this many times. There are exceptions, but they are rare. Most of the time, if someone has Saturn related to their relationships area, there are a few scenarios. One, if you choose to get married early, you either separate and divorce, usually around the first Saturn return, or even if there is no separation and divorce, around this age, the person reconsiders, reevaluates. And yes, there could be a feeling of disappointment, or like it has been a mistake. Obviously, it would depend on the culture, the time we live in. Like, for example, in the past, not that many people had the chance to separate. So many people were forced to kind of like live with the consequences of their choices. But usually, if Saturn is related to a certain life area, it's normal to have delays there. but it's not a bad thing, again, because one of the best things about Saturn is that this is the most fair planet, the planet of justice. So if you really work hard for something, eventually you will be rewarded. Most likely it will take time. Most likely it will not be immediate. But if Saturn is related to certain life area, usually it will be an important one for you. Usually in some way it will feel problematic, but also this is an incredible opportunity for you to grow and to learn something important. So for those areas that are affected by Saturn, of course, the Saturn cycle would play a huge role, especially the returns, like the first Saturn return around the age of 29, 30. The second one around 50 something, 50, what is that? 56, 58. And then even the third one. Those are like major, let me find the word. Like I would say that those Saturn returns are like dividing our life into different sectors. And I will tell you even more than that. The first Saturn cycle, so the first 30 years of our life, are considered to be related somehow more to the past. So if you're open to the idea of previous incarnations and all of that, that's exactly what I mean. This could be like we can be still processing something from the past related to our previous Saturn experiences. The second cycle, so roughly between the age of 30 and 60, or to be more precise, 29 and 56, 58, this period, this phase, is more about the present, so the current life. So something shifts significantly, like the past is no longer that limiting or determining so many things. And then the third cycle, so after 56, 58, is somehow related to the future. I won't go in details about that because that's also a very long topic, but just to keep it in mind. Also, besides that, for Saturn, pay attention to the 7-year cycles. Every 7 years, Saturn is doing like a 90-degree aspect to its natal position. And this can also bring something important. That's why, by the way, usually in relationships and marriage, one of the more specific, potentially critical, or at least we can say testing periods is around the 7th year, because this is the Saturn cycle. And Saturn, I hope that's not too much information, but I just want to share as much as I can. So I hope I'm not overwhelming you. But Saturn is exalted in Libra. So Saturn is very important for the area of relationships and marriage and connections. And because of that, in relationships, especially if we talk about formal relationships like getting married, Saturn plays a huge role. And those 7-year cycles can be kind of like a turning point, or could be some form of a test. And usually, if we can pass the 7th year, after that, we have much higher chances to keep the relationship. Obviously, people divorce after 20, 30, maybe even 40 years of marriage. That does happen. But nevertheless, this 7th year cycle is usually like, before and after. If we pass this, then the chance for separation or divorce after that decreases. But that's not only relevant to relationships. So whatever areas are affected or connected to Saturn in your chart, you should notice like what happens every 7 years when you have those squares. Like first it would be again like a Saturn return, then after 7 years you will have a first square. After another 7 years there will be an opposition, and then again another square. But the point is that every 7 years there is a specific phase, and this can also show you a dynamic related to this life area. I'm just thinking about, in my case, because Saturn is related to, is the ruler of my 7th house. I have Capricorn on the cusp of 7th house. So I got married for the first time on such a Saturn square. Then on my Saturn return, approximately, I met with my next partner. We lived together for a few years. And next year, I'm also having the next Saturn phase. So I will keep you posted. But like my expectation is that something might happen in this life area. But I will share with you if that confirms. But you can really explore this dynamic also for yourself. And here again, like, don't be like extremely punctual. Like, we are not going for like, you know, finding the exact day or even month. Like, this is like a big picture perspective. So for example, ±1 year really counts and matters. Because why is that? Because there needs to be like other factors to make this happen. Like, for example, faster planets or something in progressions. So you may see like, you know, the bigger or the deeper tendencies, but then when exactly the event will happen would depend on the faster planets or like additional factors. So again, like, just try to see the big picture, the big perspective. Next, the outer planets. Even more interesting, even more complicated. If Saturn is related to, Uranus. If Uranus is related to certain life area, you can expect surprises. You can expect changes. You can expect unpredictable turn of events. Here, it's very interesting how it may manifest, because there are many options and possibilities. One option is that if generally we are more rigid, we are not that open to changes, and we, you know, like certainty and stability. In this way, usually the Uranus energy will be experienced more as something external. Like, for example, let's say I want stability, but something always happens, so I can't seem to have this stability in this area of my life. A hint here: the energies are always within us. Even when it seems like something is happening externally, it's just resonating with an energy which is already within you. And that's especially true about the outer planets and Uranus in particular. If we are more like adventurous, we like changes, in this case, we may just feel like, oh, I just want more variety and more freedom in this area of my life. So again, how we perceive this might be very different, but the bottom line is that this energy is always somewhere inside of us. And if you want to go even deeper, especially with Uranus, and that also applies to Pluto, be very mindful and explore if there might be some kind of destructive tendencies. More or less, we all have this. Freud is talking about those impulses. How did he call this? One was eratus, the other one was thanatos. I hope I'm not making a mistake, but it was something like that. Maybe I'm not pronouncing them properly, but doesn't matter. So the two impulses, the impulse for life and death. That's especially true for Pluto, by the way, but also could be related to Uranus. So within us, again, more or less, we all have an impulse for life and another one for death, or in other words, to do something or to build up something hypothetically, and then also to destroy. Uranus and Pluto can be especially relevant to this. And again, usually here we talk about deeper layers, which can be more subconscious. So it's not necessarily something that we are very well aware of, especially if those planets have challenging aspects. That's an even stronger indicator and hint. And there is nothing scary in that. There is nothing, I would say, wrong with that. But the more aware you are, the more you realize, the more you find it within yourself, the higher chance you have to do something with that and maybe even learn to control it. It's not easy to control the outer planets because they are collective planets. Their energies are extremely powerful, but it's not impossible. It's again a matter of growth and level of development, honestly. But if Uranus is related to certain life areas, it's worth it to explore this, like your need for changes, for variety. And again, hypothetically also to see, are there any destructive tendencies? So the aspects here would help you a lot to find how much of that is there. With Uranus, how long does it take for the Uranus return? Uranus cycle is 84 years. But the previous phases are also important. The first one is approximately around the age of 21, plus minus, again, it could be like 1-2 years. And the other significant one is approximately the age of 42. And if you look like statistically what happens with people, you will see that many of us go through some kind of big changes, sometimes crazy experiences around those ages. Usually the first one, approximately 21, is more like, I want some independence, like others shouldn't tell me what to do, like I want my freedom, like, there could be some kind of rebel energy. And the 40-something is, of course, the popular midlife crisis, which is usually also a time when we consider that, or we realize that we want to set free from some kind of limitations, we want freedom. And very important, we might have this impulse to destroy something if we feel like, we don't like it anymore, we want something new. So be very mindful with this dynamic. Again, the aspects are really important. With Neptune and Pluto, actually with Pluto, it's very interesting. Pluto is the only planet whose which path is an ellipse, not a circle. What does that mean? Pluto is the only planet which has a different speed depending on the signs that it crosses. Pluto is slower, or the slowest speed of Pluto is approximately in the sign of Taurus, and the fastest when Pluto is in Scorpio. For example, when Pluto was passing Scorpio, it took approximately 11 years. Like, it could be a little off. Like, honestly, right now, I can't remember exactly, but it was something like that, like 11, 12 years. And in the opposite sign, in Taurus, Pluto is moving for, it was like 25 or even 30 years. So Pluto's speed for people from different generations is very different. Why is that important? Because it means that we will all have our square. So the transiting square, or the square from the transiting Pluto to our natal Pluto at a different age. For the older generations, it used to happen later in their life. For the younger generations right now, which are living, it happens earlier. So it's not so fixed. Like, for example, with Uranus, we say, oh, it's approximately 42. But with Pluto, for some people, it could be late in their 40s. For others, it could be even in their 30s. So that's also an interesting perspective. And again, you can dive deep and, research this. It's really interesting. So, but again, with Pluto, it's more like it changes. What else here? Something important also. Pay attention if you have aspects between slower planets. I'm talking about planets starting with Jupiter and after that. So Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. If you have aspects between those planets in between, then also you should pay attention to the transiting, like repetitive cycles. Example, next year during April, we have a conjunction in the transits. We will have a conjunction between Jupiter and Uranus. Everyone who has an aspect between those two planets in their natal chart will be more affected, especially if you also have a conjunction, but not only. You may have other aspects. This transiting conjunction will be more important for you. Or let's say I also have a conjunction between Saturn and Uranus. It's a rare generational aspect. So if you are also from my generation, you should always check, like, when do we have aspects between Saturn and Uranus in the sky? Because those are the times when something important will change in those life areas for you. Or if you are born the generation in the second half of the 60s, so approximately between 1964, 1968, 69, people born during this time have a conjunction between Pluto and Uranus. Very, very, very rare, extremely important aspect. And some of you even have an opposition with Saturn during part of the time. So for you to observe those periods, for example, a few years ago, we had a square. Let me just remember exactly when was that. Roughly 2010, 2015. Again, I'm not extremely precise, but approximately around this time. So you may notice that for many of the people from the generation of the 1964, 1968, approximately, for them, this was either like a critical period, or they achieved something with a huge effort, or they were part of some kind of collective process or transformation. So pay attention to those aspects in your chart, aspects between slower planets. Why, you may ask, why only the slower planets? Why we are excluding, for example, aspects between the Sun and Mars? Aren't they important as well? Yes, in some way they are important, but definitely not on this level, because those aspects are much faster. For example, conjunction between Mars and the Sun lasts approximately 4 days. Yes, something may happen. You will feel it for sure. Something can make you more active or may make you more irritated, like depending on the energies. But in 4 days, your life will not get transformed if it's just this energy that's affecting you. But if Uranus and Pluto are triggering you, this will last for months or for years. If it's Uranus and Pluto, it's for years. And yes, in a few years, big and deep transformations may happen, and many things may change in your life. So in other words, pay attention to aspects between the slower planets and which life areas are they connected to. And that's how you can also find more about the dynamic of this life area. Okay, so let me see. What else do I want to add here? If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I will try to go quickly. Where do we check for second marriage? Like, what transits do we look out for? First of all, you shouldn't look just at transits. Transits are, I would say, the most superficial method. So you should explore other methods, not just transits. You should look for progressions, solar returns, I would say even solar arc directions. And you should define which are those indicators of your seventh house, because seventh house is related to marriage. Even if it's your second and 10th marriage, it still needs to be your seventh house. And you should define which are the planets which are connected to my seventh house. Let's take an example. Just a random example. Let's say someone has Libra on the cusp of seventh house. So it means that Venus is their ruler, the ruler of their seventh house. And let's say they also happen to have Mars in seventh house. So you define which are the indicators, which planets are related to this life area. And then you should use the predictive methods to see when something changes or when something affects those planets. Yes, that includes the transits, but it could also be progression. It could be ingression in progressions. So anything that might be happening. And from there, you just analyze. What is the quality? Like, is there something new that is coming? Is there a new quality, an expansion, and so on? So in other words, no matter what life area you want to analyze, you need to define which are those astrology indicators that in my chart are relevant to this particular life area. You analyze the scenarios in general from the natal chart. And then you use predictive methods to see when there are some kind of changes or something triggering those indicators. In the example I gave, it would be Venus and Mars. So what happens with this Venus and Mars? If nothing happens, chances are nothing significant is happening in your life as well. If something does happen, let's say you have a progression affecting your Venus, you have a transit affecting your Mars, it's not a guarantee, but there is a good chance, depending on, how strong are the triggers, that would define how strong is the possibility for something to actually change in this life area. And one more hint also specifically about marriage, you always need Saturn. Always. Saturn is the formality. Saturn is the law, the documents. So you always need Saturn. A good question. What about Aquarius? It's ruled by Uranus or by Saturn? By both. Here also something, if you want to go deeper. We know that some of the signs have an old and a new ruler. For example, Aquarius. The old ruler is Saturn, the new ruler is Uranus. Pisces, the old ruler is Jupiter, the new ruler is Neptune. Scorpio, the old ruler is Mars, the new ruler is Pluto. But if you want to go even deeper, you should explore the other signs that the new ruler has with the old ruler as well. What do I mean here? Neptune is, Jupiter is also ruling Sagittarius, but you can explore also Neptune as a second ruler of Sagittarius. Surprisingly and shockingly, maybe, also Uranus as a second ruler of Capricorn, not just Saturn. And the last one, for Aries, not only Mars, but also Pluto as a second ruler. That's if you want to go even deeper. It may not show something so obvious and clear, but if you want to go deep and deeper, consider also those rulerships. About the transits from the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Outer planet transiting a house is just creating some kind of background scenarios or situations or energy. It's not necessarily triggering an event. If you want something more concrete or even like an event or a concrete process, there needs to be an aspect with personal planets. So for example, Caro was sharing Uranus is just leaving my 7th house. So if Uranus is just transiting your 7th house, it's just creating some kind of background energy. But if during the same time, let's say Uranus is having an aspect with your sun, moon, Mercury, whatever, a planet in your chart, you will feel this energy much stronger. And actually, it may bring concrete events. So this is very important. That's for the outer planets. So for Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Mm-hmm. What aspect with Saturn delays marriage and kids? Any aspect. If it's related to those houses. Any aspect. It's not a blockage. Sometimes it could be, but not necessarily. But potentially any aspect from Saturn means that you need to be more cautious. You don't need to rush into that. Here again, it would really depend on the whole chart. I have seen charts with a trine between Saturn and Venus, somehow related to 7th house or 4th house. And this also brings a delay because the person is very cautious in their choices about the partner or a home. So, but again, this isn't a bad thing. Nicolette is sharing. I have Saturn and my moon in 7th in Taurus, married twice. First at 27, regret by 28, second at 43. Thank you very much for bringing this up. You have gotten married on your progressed moon return because your moon is in Taurus in 7th house, and it's a very strong position for the moon. Moon is exalted. It's like dominating this conjunction. The moon dominates Saturn in your case. And you have gotten married on the first progressed moon return. This is approximately the age of 27 and a half. for women, especially for women, if Saturn has difficult aspects, for example, Saturn in a difficult aspect with Mars, this is usually a typical aspect for problems in marriage, in partnerships, and often there are divorces. But after this age, 40 something, usually it's like 44, 45, like approximately around this age, the Saturn influence can change significantly, can soften. So for many women with problematic Saturn aspects, especially with Mars and with 7th house, after this age, the scenarios change significantly. Someone is reminding me, even though maybe it's not your goal, but I just got reminded by the numbers. Oh, Anna, I got married at 32 and 30, had a kid at 33. This is the age of the sun. Yes, I want to add this also to the previous topic. The cycle of the sun is 11 years. So, and it's related like astronomically with some kind of cycles of the sun. So the areas in your horoscope which are affected or related by the sun, explore there the 11-year cycles, what happens there. And specifically the age of 33 is like usually also like a key period in our life, especially if your sun is strong. So check which life areas are related to your sun and explore what happens every 11 years approximately, and pay special attention to the age of 33 if you have already passed this age. And you may find also interesting connections and dynamic there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we can use a volunteer if we have a volunteer. Before that, I just want to use the window, the opportunity to answer some of the questions related to the new training that we are starting. What is this training about and all other stuff. By the way, if you have questions, also feel free to ask them now. I will try to cover things that I was asked on email or on Telegram or whatever in other ways. So our new training is specifically focused on astrology for development and progress. So my goal is to teach you not to look at the chart as something static and, you know, like fixed, but to learn to see the dynamic, where things are coming from, like what is the root of the processes, or I would say even of our own life flow, and then to be able to see the dynamic in progress and to find also how we can evolve and how we can grow with that. So for me, that's like the real beauty and depth of astrology, to see how we can develop and grow in time, and basically to learn to see our own life flow and to live in alignment with this. That's the greatest gift that astrology can bring you. The other more concrete stuff, like when do I get married? When do I change jobs? Like that's just a consequence. And that, trust me, that's much easier to see. And you will learn to see that if you learn to see this deeper flow. And of course, we will also study that as well. I tried to create the training in the most flexible way. So there are pre-recorded classes, more than 50 hours of pre-recorded classes. You get access to them immediately, to all of them. So you can watch them as soon and as fast as you want. And in addition to that, so you get all the needed theory on natal astrology. If you are brand new to astrology, great. You'll get everything you need. If you are more experienced, also wonderful, because you will see a structure and a system of how to put everything together, which is also like extremely important ability for a good astrologer, to know how to structure all the knowledge you have and how to see someone and their life in the chart. We will have weekly classes live on Zoom, also of course recorded. So if you can join us live, wonderful, try to do that. If not, you can also watch the recordings. In those during the live classes, we will talk about more advanced theory. We will practice a lot. And also, your needs will be a very high priority for me. So what you need as additional information, as additional practice, will define also how the whole process will go. So this is a very live experience. So it's not like a predefined strict thing that I'm just giving you and you go and you handle with that. No, the point is for me to provide for you what exactly you need. So again, I repeat that your needs and interest will also play a major role, your questions and all of that. We have 2 modules, so we will have one focused on the natal analysis, natal astrology, and the second module is focused on prediction. But again, this is like a deeper level of prediction. So not just the cookbook interpretations, we will need those, like it's like the alphabet. We will need the cookbook interpretations. But the more interesting part is to learn how to think and how to connect the dots. And we will pay more attention to this, how to put everything together, and again, to see the whole flow. Also, one of the important things is that you will have the future opportunity to keep growing and learning. How is this going to happen? So the training officially lasts for, I think it was 7 or 8 months. I forgot, honestly. I think it was 7 or 8, one of those anyway. 7 or 8 months of live classes. But then you are not left alone, to just do whatever you can. You will have the opportunity to have an ongoing support. How is this going to work? We will have an yearly membership. So this yearly membership includes 2 sessions per month, 2 group sessions per month, so bi-weekly. And you can keep joining us, ask questions, you will keep learning new things, and this will be very affordable. So probably something like $100 per year or something like that. Something I haven't shared so far, actually, is that for those that actually this yearly membership will start from January. So as a bonus, those people who join the modules, the new course, as a gift, will also have access to those bi-weekly membership meetings for free for the time of their training. So just as another gift that you are receiving. What else? If I'm missing something, I hope I will remember and let you know later. If you are interested, yes, you can also contact me from the membership form, from the website form, or if you have any questions also. And after the video, after the webinar, we will put the links also. So I'm very excited about this training. Like, for me, it's somehow also resonating with something important that I'm going through. And again, one of my main focuses would be to explore the resource and the potential for growth through astrology. So if that resonates with you, if you feel like you are also ready, to grow somehow in certain area of your life, it could be as an astrologer, it could be in something else, then this would be great also for you. Okay, so do we have a volunteer who wants to join me on Zoom? If you do, please shortly ask your question, or what is the focus, what do you want us to explore, in the comments, and we will see. And of course, thank you for your interest and for your desire to sign up. So again, if you want to volunteer, please share what is your focus or question. What would you like us to explore together, so that I can feel a little bit of the energy. Naomi says, I forgot her name. If by her you are referencing me, if you mean my name is Marina Stoichkova. Thank you for your interest here. Justin V has a pretty interesting question. Justin, do you want to join me on Zoom? And also quick share. I'm planning something. So you also let me know if you like this idea to do like a marathon of free readings. So if you like this format, to, someone gets a free reading, we are all also learning. You can also let me know, and yes, probably we'll organize this soon. Okay, Justin is willing to join me. 1 second to find my link. This must be the right one. So please, only Justin should join me. And we will all learn together and practice. I see. 1 second to go here. Hello, Justin?
Hi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Okay, so you're brave.
I see that Mars in Aries is a brave aspect, you said in the previous live.
You have it?
Yes.
Okay, then it makes sense. Okay, can you please give me your birth details?
Yes, so it's 21st of May, 1994 at 11:55 in the morning, a.m. in France. So I'm going to...
Thank you.
Write the name on the chat.
Oh, yes, thank you, thank you. That would be Okay, so now I will need a little time to calculate your chart.
Sure.
So please be patient with me. Do you have interest in astrology, Justin?
Oh, yes, for a long time. I haven't studied, but I like to listen to readers and some aspect explanation and stuff like that.
When did your interest begin? Do you remember?
Yes, when I was young, because I'm a Gemini, but 0 degrees. And everybody says I'm a Taurus, but I am not. I am a Gemini. So, you know, when you look at the horoscope in the newspaper, they say 21st of May is Taurus, but not for me. So I was always frustrated that people say not the good thing. So it started when I was young, and after that, I just kept going.
Interesting. Just a moment, because there are it's the location I'm trying to find. I think I found it. Is your ascendant on the 18th degree of Leo?
Yes.
Perfect. Then it's the right location. The time difference is 2 hours. Yes. 50. 37. So you were saying, so when you find out that you are a Gemini, it made more sense to you?
Kind of, yes.
Sorry, what?
Yes, yes, because I'm all in the head. I love doing things with my hand, but I was wondering, I love writing and books, and Taurus is not the first thing they say about Taurus. Not.
Yes, I also remember kind of the same experience, but with my grandmother. She was also born, oh boy, I think it was 21st of March. And like traditional calculators were showing that she is an Aries. And she was always saying, no, I'm an Aries. And she didn't really look like Aries at all. And when I actually learned to calculate charts and, you find out that there is a day when the signs shift. So some of the people on this day will be Pisces and others will be Aries. And you can't know that without actually calculating the time, exact chart. And I found that actually her son was the very last degree of Pisces. And it made so much sense. Like, that's who she was. She was like a real Pisces. So I understand what you mean.
So it started like that, and after that you find a word.
Not really. No. It was just somewhere along the road. Like, it wasn't the first thing. Yeah, it wasn't the first thing, but I remember, yeah, when I started calculating, the charts of people I know, relatives, and all of that. I'm almost ready. By the way, while I speak, I'm trying to multitask and also calculate the proper charts.
And I think astrology is fun because when I was then a teenager and a young adult, it was all about synastry. I wanted to know, is it going to be my forever love? And with the different moment of my life, I find new application for it. Or
oh, yes.
new interest.
That's another amazing thing. Astrology is as deep as you are. If you have, and that's not a bad thing, if we have a more superficial interest, perfect. You can explore more superficial things, or that's fine. If you want to go deeper, astrology also allows you to do that. So astrology itself doesn't have a limit in terms of how deep you can go with this. The only limit is coming from us and our interest and our ability also to process things. So yes, and you may notice that the more you evolve, the more you grow, the more you change. Also, as you said, like how you use astrology or why you want to use it. So I'm ready enough with my philosophy. Do I have your permission to share your chart?
You have.
Okay, great. I'm just reminding that you have the right to say that, for example, you don't want to go somewhere, you don't want to explore something, like please feel free to set boundaries or limits, like of course, generally speaking, the more open you are, the better. It's always how it works, but we are not forcing you in any way, and also it's important for you to feel comfortable. Okay. So can you please tell me, what would you like us to explore in your chart?
Yes, there is kind of to push in the same time my career and my desire to maybe start a family. And for the longest time, I was always a career person, like I'm an artist, and it was always what came first. But somehow it has changed this year. I have now a home that I like, a nice partner, but I feel more grounded. And for the first time, I'm thinking about maybe starting a family, but it's strange to have those two directions right in front of me. And I'm wondering, is it just something that is going to pass away, or is it really a deep push or intuition? So maybe if you have some insight on those two things.
Okay, let's explore. Yes, it's a very interesting question, and your chart is kind of like explaining why you're even asking this question right away. Because you have your lunar nodes in those two houses, in 10th and 4th house, and you also have an opposition between the Sun and Pluto. So this dynamic, 4th, 10th house, or in other words, personal life, professional life, is one of the most important topics in your life, generally speaking. At first glance, what I would say is that most likely around the age of 36, 37, there will be like a big shift. And it's more likely that the family area will become more important. Why is that? Because you have your North Node in 4th house plus Jupiter is retrograde. So without looking at prediction, just based on your natal chart, I strongly suspect that around this age, let's take it like 35, 37, something significant will change in your life. And there is a really high chance for building up a family, and I would say even having a kid, because Jupiter is also ruling your 5th house. So it's in 4th, but ruling 5th and 8th, which is also the conceiving. So for now, again, this is not a blockage. This doesn't make it impossible earlier. But initially, that's what I would say the dynamic is. The South Node is in conjunction with the Sun in 10th house. So for you to feel self-realized, like, you have achieved something, is very important. I want to ask you a question. You will decide if and how much you want to answer it.
Yes.
But generally speaking, can you say that you have kind of like realized yourself socially?
Yes. I have made my first film, and it had quite a success in the area I am in. So I had like festivals and stuff. Not the top, but enough to have a name in the field I am in. So I've done that, and I was like, oh, okay. I thought it was going to be a bit more. It's nice, and I like who I am in this area, but somehow I'm kind of disappointed of
how it feels.
That's it. That's all. Okay. That's.
Okay. I will explain why I'm asking this.
Okay.
I want to check how much or to what extent your question and your desire is like a compensation. What do I mean here? If you, it's just a possibility. So we are just exploring options.
Okay, interesting.
With the South Node and the Sun in 10th house together, especially when they are together in 10th house, it's very important to feel like you have done something important in this world. But like you personally, because it's the Sun, like, I have created something, or I have received some kind of recognition, or I was even, respected or admired or whatever, successful, like something within this frame. Because there are possibilities. If you feel like, because you have this need, it's obvious from the chart, like initially you really have this need, but it's possible that if you feel like you can't get this, like it's kind of unreachable, you may go towards the family team as a compensation.
Okay. Somehow I think it's not that, because I have the respect of my peers, and I've started teaching, so I have like.
Yes, that's why I asked. So
okay.
But again, here it's
okay.
I mean, why I'm saying this, because you have achieved that, but it's a bit of a problem that there hasn't been a fulfillment from that.
Okay, I understand. Okay. The fact that I talk about like some
what you said,
not complete thing.
But then like was that all there is? Like,
Okay.
So my guess is that you have like a higher potential.
Okay.
And my general recommendation is first focus on 10th house. Even though, some people say, oh, the South Node, you should avoid this. This is bad. No, the South Node is a potential that you already have from the past. It's something that you have built up. It's something that you can rely on. It's like a foundation. And especially earlier in your life, it's absolutely normal that this should be your focus.
Okay.
So to try to achieve something there, plus the Sun is there. So it somehow sounds like, getting to know yourself through this process.
Okay.
And in my opinion, when you feel more fulfillment from the 10th house area, then the 4th house area will sound more fulfilling. Yeah, in other words, it won't be a compensation, but it would feel more like, I really have the resource. Now I really want to focus on this. Also, it doesn't mean that it's impossible to combine those. You have an opposition, so the opposition is always about finding the balance between two polarities. So yes, it is a challenge, but no, it's not impossible. So I think that you should not like leave or abandon your 10th house work, you know, to pursue something important. But yes, it should not be the only thing, especially with time, especially when you, how old are you now? 29.
29.
Aha, Saturn return. Okay. So completely normal to ask yourself those questions. Where am I going? What's my direction? Like all of that is completely normal. But you also have a trine between Saturn and Jupiter, the two social planets.
Okay.
So your Saturn return can be actually an important phase for your career growth. Now we will get into like progressions and transits. Like I'm just for now exploring only your natal chart, just from the natal chart, what we can get, because again, this is our foundation. Plus, I can't help but notice that Pluto is around, transiting Pluto is around your Uranus and squaring your Mars. So that's also bringing some deep questions. And Mars is the second ruler of your 4th house. Interesting. Okay, we would need definitely to check the prediction to be more precise. But just based on your natal chart, family is very important as a direction, yes, to build up a family. But there is more than that. Your South Node in conjunction with the Sun initially makes you more connected to yourself as an individual. And you have this opposition with Pluto. Usually, in almost every case, such aspects bring such dynamic like, I have my own path. Like I'm not going together with others. It's more like I'm on my own. Let me just see your Uranus. Uranus, on the other side, has a trine with the Sun. Interesting combination. So from one side, you are following your own path. You are on your own. And at the same time, you also have the ability to lead others or even to share something with other people. Like,
can I say something, maybe?
Sure, yes.
I try to avoid the industry field. So I am kind of a lone wolf. But once a year, I open my workshop to others that are like me, so we can share. Maybe. Is it something like that?
Exactly like that.
Okay.
Exactly like that. And that's what you should do. So not blend with everyone else. That's not your path. Your job is not to be, the same as everyone else, but also not to completely isolate and not to share because of the trine with Uranus and even Neptune. Like you should have a personal path of development as a professional or in other ways, but you should allow others to be part of that. In other words, to lead other people. Because the North Node is also in conjunction with Pluto. So this is really important for your development, generally in life. And Pluto is also about the collective, about, connecting to other people. I would say even like serving something, like a higher purpose or something like that.
Okay.
Here, what I would recommend you also is to explore your family story, because there could be something interesting there.
My family? Okay.
Yes. if there have been some kind of leaders, political leaders, people in some, or it could be in the army, or people with some kind of power. There is like a deeper potential that comes from the family system. And your task, and I would say it's not a simple task, it sounds more like something bigger than yourself, is also to uncover this potential that it already exists in the family system. So somebody from the family, we don't know when exactly, it could be many generations before you, it could be two before you, we don't know. But Pluto in 4th house, also Pluto is connected to the other outer planets. Pluto is connected to your sun. Pluto is connected to the lunar nodes. Pluto is the ruler of your 4th house. So you have somewhere like a very deep potential, but probably there have been some kind of also bad experiences. For example, people who have had power, but for whatever reason were also punished, or they have suffered, or there were some kind of negative consequences, or they were in danger. So
there's the side of family I don't know, because my grandmother was an orphan, so I don't know about that side. And the other side, we are farmers, so
it could be, yes, it's something hidden, it's something which is not necessarily, you know, on the surface and obvious.
But I know there is a side I don't know. And my father don't talk that much, and so I don't know.
Why was your grandmother an orphan? Do you know? Like,
I don't. It was during the war.
So there you have it.
Yes. Okay.
Something from there.
Yes.
Most likely from this side in this case. Yes, of course, it happens. Like sometimes we don't have like, and especially if we talk about previous generations, we never know the actual facts. You can explore it with family constellations, or, for example, GSR is my own choice of work, like to dig deeper, like there is some kind of potential on this level. So that's also important. Okay, let's take a look at the dynamic in progress. Just a quick look here. Uranus is very slow. Neptune is also very slow. Just I want to see again if they might be stationary. So Uranus and Neptune. If they are stationary, it means that they must have turned retrograde before you were born. No, the other way around. Direct after you were born. No, it's not. They are not stationary. Okay. Let me just return the 21st. So let's see the progressions. Your progressed moon is in Scorpio now, which means that it's in the natal chart, it's in your 4th house.
Okay.
It has just passed through Jupiter, so that makes total sense.
Okay.
Why this topic
could be the reason the questions appear.
Of course. Okay. Yes, of course. That explains it. What I'm seeing also is that soon your progressed sun will ingress into Cancer. It will happen approximately 18 months from now. And even earlier than that, so a year from now, the progressed sun will be in conjunction. Oh, actually, it's already in conjunction with Venus.
My Venus is 0 degree.
So. From next month. So if I need to be like very precise from December 23. Your progressed sun will be in conjunction with the natal Venus, because here we use 2-degree orb. So that's also relevant to the topic. And the sun ingressing in Cancer can be related to creating a family, having a child. So that's definitely relevant. Let's see what happens next. The progressed moon will get to 4th house in the progressed chart, which means in 5th in the natal. The sun will ingress in Cancer. This is happening, when is that? It's like 24, 25. So next year and the following year.
Okay.
So this can bring a significant focus on the topic.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's like on the date.
Yeah.
Or...
It's not like set in stone. We will see the transits. We can check also the solar return charts. But I'm seeing something more like in the future, which is stronger, even stronger. Like, I mean, this Sun Venus aspect is really great. What is Venus? But Venus is ruling your 10th house.
Everything is like
this is great for your career. This is great for art, for public work, for putting something.
I'll take it.
Yeah, it's for an artist, and also it's in 11th house. So being some kind of leader, or doing something for a community, or as you said, you're sharing with other artists, like that's amazing.
Okay.
So it's a tricky situation. I mean, it goes both ways, but honestly, like intuitively, somehow I feel like for now the focus is a bit more on your creative expression and work. And like, again, it doesn't make it impossible, but I think that a few years from now there will be more focus on family, because first of all, as we said, in the transits you have a Jupiter return, lunar nodes return, but in progressions what I can see is that the progressed sun will have a trine with the progressed Jupiter a few years from now.
Okay.
So starting from approximately 2027, when is that? 4 years from now? 4 years from now.
Okay.
And it lasts for 4 years. So approximately between the age of roughly 33, 37, your progressed sun will have a trine with Jupiter. First with the progressed, then it will be with the natal. So it would be a long period of, I would say, potentially very positive opportunities and changes. But it could be social, like with Jupiter, we can always consider some kind of, recognition, success, and all of that. But in your case, Jupiter is in the 4th and it rules 5th. So I think that it would be more about the personal life things. So for now, how I can summarize things, like I don't see blockages. I don't see it as impossible. But my feeling is that for now, your flow is more in the social creative area.
Okay.
And a few years from now, it would be more on your personal life. Okay. But let's keep exploring. We'll see. Like, we are just, building the picture together. Like,
but it also makes sense because, like, I think I need to think those things in the long term, like time. Not going to be impulsive on something like that. So it makes sense to just let it infuse.
Yes. And
it makes sense.
Also, I see like energetically how you respond when I'm talking about this. And my feeling is that you like this perspective, that it's so that's also kind of answering, the question, but let's keep exploring. We'll see what else we can find. But yeah, so far, also, progressed moon will get to 5th, then to 7th house. So yeah. Let me see, is there anything else major here? Saturn in progressions will get to the cusp of your 7th house around this time also, 27, 28, 29, which also for marriage is great.
Okay.
Or, something stable in...
Yes.
And Saturn is the 2nd ruler of your 7th house. Here, we need to be cautious, keeping in mind that the chart is probably not rectified, or at least not by me. So a few minutes difference here may change a bit this thing about Saturn. But anyway, it's somewhere close to this period as well. Something very important. Saturn is turning retrograde in progressions.
Okay.
During 2027. So Saturn turns retrograde.
Which is important.
Oh, yeah, it is. Okay. Which means that you are already, let's check, but you should be already in a stationary Saturn phase. Let me just make sure that's correct. 12 degrees, 24 minutes is where Saturn is now. No, that would be the degree when Saturn turns retrograde. And this is now, yes, you are already in a Saturn stationary phase. So probably, yes, like you can, and Saturn is really affecting you now. Like you are in a Saturn return phase in the transits, plus Saturn is stationary in progressions. So yes, you really need some time. You don't need to rush through things. And this can even be like a little test for yourself to check if what you're going for is like a real genuine desire, or it's more like a compensation. If it feels more like a rush, like, I want to do it fast right now, like, it's time, I won't wait. Chances are it's more like a compensation. Okay. If you can wait, for example, yes, I want to build this, I want to have a family, or I want to have a kid, but I'm not like, oh, it has to happen the next day. But, I can plan, I can wait for the right time. Then there is a much higher chance that you have an actual resource for that, and it's not a compensation. And it's always better to do things in this way, not as a compensation. That's always relevant, but especially if you are under Saturn's influence.
Okay.
If something feels like a rush, like I need this very fast right now in my life, that's an indication that you have a very strong frustration somewhere in your life, within yourself, and you are trying to compensate that by avoiding it and, rushing into something else. We are all living our lives like this. I mean, that's a very normal human behavior and strategy. But if we want to avoid, those regrets, in the future, we should pay attention to those. Like, are we pursuing something because we are frustrated and we want to run away from something else? If that's the fact, that's not a solution.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and it really changes your life when you start noticing and, you know, paying attention. Let's see your transits. Let's explore here. So in your natal chart for marriage, we need 7th house. So Uranus is the ruler, but also Saturn. So Uranus and Saturn, but you have a conjunction also between Uranus and Neptune. So you're one of those cases, you know, when I was mentioning, you know, pay attention to those aspects between the slower planets, if you happen to have those.
And my parents are the generation of 65, so they have the other one.
They're Uranus with Pluto. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's somewhere also here around those degrees, in the 20th degree. So they're trining. Are your parents also involved in something more social, or like presenting something, or like?
Not so much.
No, they are not.
My mother is talkative, but not social.
No, I mean, because your work is like socially oriented, like you are creating something, you know, usually that's the work for artists, you know, like you create something for others. So in their case, that's not.
No, more like accountants and
Like,
something like work classic.
I see. So it's more like from your chart than this social focus on some kind of collective service, some kind of collective work. Interesting. Also, there is a chance in your case that your partner might be more than just a romantic partner. Like, you know, like you would be doing something else together.
We write together.
Okay, that's also great. Because Uranus is in conjunction with Neptune in 6th, and they're trining your sun, which is in 10th house. So in a way, also relationships can be a way, or how to say that, can bring you more opportunities for growth personally and as a professional as well, because of this trine. So just be open, like not like, you know, rigid and extremely like demanding, but you may check also with your partner, like, do you see how, for example, with him you can grow together, not to require this from him, you know, to push you, or, you know, to, but from the outside, if you can just check the dynamic, if when you are with him, or since you have been with him, you see how this is allowing you to grow, or like things are turning around, or together you can do something, because in your case, that's how it should work. Like together. Of course, there is a possibility that this may happen also through like another type of partnership with a friend, with a coworker. That's also an option. But it would be great if you can combine it also with your partner. And actually, that's how you can bridge your south and north node, or the career and the family. So that it doesn't feel like you should make a choice, like it's only this or that, like, you know, I'm only career oriented or family oriented. You have the real chance to bridge those. And one of the good ways to do it is with your partner, somehow, either like a mutual project or a mutual interest, or it might be also in a more invisible ways, like, you know, it's just his presence or his support, or, but pay attention.
I can share a little,
but, and you get what I mean. I know that
but I have already feel something like that. For example, I'm more towards the abstract part art, and he's more narrative. And my next project is going towards the narrative for the first time, and it's very interesting process, like to go towards his part of art, and I do not leave behind mine, but we try to find a middle ground and make a project I never thought I would be able to write and have on my shoulder.
Okay. That's a very good sign. What you are describing is basically that through him, you are able also to expand.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what So that's a good check that, you know, this is a good partner for you because you have this possibility. And again, then you wouldn't need to make this choice like this or that. You will be able, you know, like to float or to not to give up, but just to expand, to add more.
Yes.
Oh, I love such when things are just coming together and you see like the whole, this is the dynamic. So this is a live dynamic. When we don't just look at, oh, Saturn squaring this, Jupiter trining this, but you know, that's like the really big picture and flow of life. Like for you to see this dynamic. Yes, because of this 4th, 10th house opposition between planets and nodes, initially it may feel like this or that. But when you put everything together, you see that in your case, you don't need to make this choice of giving up. You can expand and you can kind of like bring everything together. Of course, it will take time. Of course, you know, it's not like a quick fix thing, but it wouldn't be interested if it was that simple. So,
but because making a choice is what makes me afraid, because you often hear about women artists who lose their career once they have a child. So it's really something that I'm very afraid of, to have to
yes,
to that
here
first.
you're allowing the social concepts to limit you.
Yes.
Yes, but you don't have to do that.
Okay.
Especially you. I'm not sure if anyone should ever do that, but let's not generalize. You, in your case, should definitely not come from this place of, you know, like social, this or that, women. I completely understand what you mean, but you can just rise above this, and it's possible. Looking at your transits, well, the first thing I see is this Jupiter very close to your MC and soon about to be in conjunction with your Sun. So right now is a great time to focus on work and some kind of public work and expression.
Okay.
So yes, Pluto is transiting here, squaring your Mars. This Pluto is bothering you somehow with Mars, like it's activating some kind of energy of to need more safety. Like if something on certain level, and it could be subconscious, feels unsafe, this can also be like a motivation, especially for women, to wanna, you know, have a family or to have some stability and structure. Why I'm saying this? Because Mars is the 2nd ruler of your 4th house. And Pluto squaring Mars can bring some kind of more turbulent, more complicated energy, like, you know, something feels more intense. And this is on a very deep subconscious level. Again, it triggers some kind of old scenarios of your ancestors. And, you know, this energy is just activated within you. So, in other words, stories of women who have felt unsafe, in danger, threatened, plus your Pluto is quite specific, you know, in 4th house. So probably in previous generations, there have been lots of issues related to uncertainty, danger, wars, all of that.
I won't go too much, but I have nasty things from a long time ago that I'm trying to make it more safe. So that maybe that.
Yes. This can be a trigger. And again, you should not judge yourself, or we shouldn't judge anyone ever. But for women, very often this is a mechanism, like, or a reason why we want a family.
Okay.
If you feel unsafe.
Okay.
So when you see such transits,
Okay.
the first thing you should work on is this feeling of unsafety and danger. Because if you fix that, if you heal that, if you overcome that, and you still want to have the family, great. It means that you have a resource. But in some cases, you will find that this inner feeling of unsafety has been the main motivator to want to have a family.
Okay.
Which is, again, not a good motivator, because eventually you will not be fulfilled with that. So again, this doesn't deny or exclude the possibility that there might be an actual resource, but before you get there, you should work on this feeling of being in danger, or something is unsafe, or I'm attacked, or this Pluto-Mars energy.
Okay.
Okay, let's see what else is. Also, the upcoming conjunction between Jupiter and Uranus, which is around April, will be very close to your South Node. Actually, exactly in conjunction.
Okay.
Less than 1 degree orb. So that's also major. So something from the past, I think that you can be kind of like rewarded from something that you have built up or you have worked for in the past. It could be the past, meaning this lifetime, and, you know, some projects, ideas, whatever, something that has already been started, one option. But it could be like a deeper thing, you know, something that you've been developing and, you know, learning and growing back then. We don't know when exactly. And now it's like somehow liberated, or, you know, it can kind of like come out of you, through you.
Okay.
So also an indicator that work is a good focus for you. Let me see what else. The Saturn return, we said that's completely normal. Those reassessments, or the need to build up a plan, or, you know, to see things in perspective. A very healthy, normal thing. Generally speaking, with Saturn in 8th house, usually it's not the best time for pregnancy.
Okay.
Not like forbidden or 100% bad thing. Plus, your Saturn actually has pretty good aspects. And there is one karmic aspect with the Sun, but for the most part, Saturn there is a Saturn has a nice aspect with Jupiter, the ruler of 5th house. But Saturn is squaring 5th house. So I wouldn't recommend you to do this while Saturn is transiting your 8th house. Mostly, not only, or not so much because Saturn is in 8th, but because Saturn from 8th house is squaring the cusp of your 5th. So to get pregnant when this thing is activated, not the best thing.
Okay.
So
okay.
Keep it in mind that after Saturn leaves 8th house, it's probably better.
How I see it, like there is a lot of emphasis on work, let the heavy transit slowly go away, and if the desire is still here, maybe go for it.
Yeah, that's how it is. But your chart is very active. So it's not about, just staying passively, not doing anything. It's just directing the energy in
But sometimes, for the first time, I feel like I don't know exactly how to go. And for as long as I can remember, I had that instinct, like, that's what I should do, that's what I should do, that's what I should do. And it's been, I think, 2 years, and there's a lot of direction, like many doors. I can go there, I can go there, I can
It
go there.
started 2 years ago.
Oh, maybe.
That's your progressed sun.
Okay.
When the progressed sun gets to the last 3 degrees of the sign, of any sign, those are called critical degrees. Not in the sense that they are dangerous or anything like that. It's just, in some way the planet gets tired from being in this sign. It's like there is the desire for something new. Like, I want to kind of like jump ahead. But until the ingression happens, the new beginning is not quite here yet. So that's probably why you feel kind of like, well, it's time for some kind of change or something different, but it's not quite here yet. Again, a normal process. And when you combine this with the Saturn return and also the Saturn stationary. So this all together, explains the situation. Let's see very quickly the dynamic. So here around 2027, 2028 is one important period. The lunar nodes will be crossing the cusp of first, seventh house, plus Jupiter will be there as well. So, and a little bit after that, Saturn is moving to your 10th house. So hypothetically, this is one good period for marriage. And then a little bit later, when Jupiter moves to, first it will get to the moon and then to your 4th house. So again, this doesn't make it impossible before that. But right now, I think that, and you should definitely not give up on your work or career or all of that. I'm just checking your solar return. So you were born during May. So yes, you are still in the middle of this one. Saturn here is also on the cusp of 8. So with the pregnancy, again, it's not impossible, but you should be careful. If you go in this direction, you should definitely, keep everything checked and. 10th house is so accentuated. Like your sun is here, Uranus, Mercury, the node is very close. So yeah, it's work and career, but that's a good thing. I mean, you can really expand. And
what is it, this chart? Is it a solar return or?
It's solar return, yes. Yes, it's a solar return. The main thing which is bringing the problem for you is the Saturn stationary in progressions. That's what is like holding you back or making you feel like that's where, yes, the progressed sun in the last 3 degrees also, and probably those two as a combination. So you need to make some kind of changes on the level of Saturn, like the way you organize your life or planning or, something Saturn related, like explore this and see what can I change there? How can I approach things from a different perspective? Like,
something very practical.
Yes, like that's the main source of your frustration in your life right now. So you need to find different ways to work with the Saturn energy, very generally speaking. Okay, Justin, so do you have any questions or does that resonate? Was this helpful for you?
Oh, this was very helpful, yes, because it's not a definite answer, but I see more clearly what is activating and what kind of influence and kind of a timing also, like to have those different period Very, very interesting. Thank you very much.
I'm very happy to hear that. Thank you so much for bringing this interesting topic and allowing us to share this experience with you.
No, thank you very much.
All the best. You can always contact me to, let me know how things are going and everything else. Okay. Thank you so much. And if you want, you can join us now on YouTube.
Yes. Bye.
Bye. Great. So I'm back here with our comments. I hope this was also helpful for you guys and interesting as an experience, as a demonstration of how we do this. If you have any questions also, I will answer them. Thank you, thank you. Yes, if someone is joining us later, of course, you can watch the recording later as well. All of the videos will be included in the playlist. Okay, guys, so thank you all again for joining me. Tomorrow we will have one more meeting. So if you are interested, we will talk more about how to see things for a year ahead. Yes, and again, of course, thanks to Justin, thanks to everyone else who was with us. When is the course available? You can sign up for the course right away. You will get access very soon, and we are starting with the live classes in December. So very soon. If you have any questions, again, you can contact me. So again, thanks to everyone. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you very soon.